BIDI. AGAPE Online. Channeling by Jean-Luc Ayoun. Animation and translation, Spanish, by Elisa Bernal. January 31, 2021. Well, BIDI is with you, and he greets to you. I am here today with you to exchange and share, and to question about the truth, about what you are living or not. So, I leave you the floor. Elisa. Acceptance. Is it an effort or something spontaneous, or the effort? If it is an effort, what could we do? And if it's spontaneous, what else do we do? What happens? What accepts? Is it the character, or is it the soul or the spirit? Or is it consciousness or everything? What accepts? What accepts? It is the soul, it is the character, or it is the conscience, or it is the whole. But why ask yourself the question of what accepts? Acceptance does not need to be explained or understood. From the moment you ask yourself the very nature of what acceptance is, you put a screen, a barrier to the living experience of that said acceptance, which can only come true spontaneously in the face of certain challenges. These challenges are not to be found in the extraordinary, but in the insignificance of the everyday. Because only there, in the face of daily life, is there the least possible chance of being disturbed by a choice or hesitation. Acceptance joins the spontaneity and ease of installation in the present instant that is lived. Acceptance is not debatable because, when it is accepted, this acceptance, if I may say so, at that moment, availability, tranquility and doing nothing then allow you to observe the intimate mechanism of the said acceptance that you could qualify, in certain moments, as transfiguration, as the tearing of the veils, where the feeling of leaving the unreality of this world and entering a state of silence and vacuity, is at that moment instantaneous. I have often made connections between the state of natural freedom and what the small child lives before having the consciousness of being an individual. So acceptance cannot be measured, weighed, analyzed. In other words, if you're in the present instant, in the totality of this instant that is there, then the acceptance, the spontaneity and the effectiveness of this acceptance will become clear to you. It is an invitation to practice and live, which, as I said, is the real understanding. Everything that is understood by the mind, by books, will never be a lived experience. It's good to allow time between translations, because the words here are perfectly placed. Silence. There's therefore a form of total equivalence in terms of results between acceptance, spontaneity, and the present instant. It is the same thing. How do you know if you're in the present instant? There's a particular disposition to listening and understanding what is there, whether it is a decor, an object, or a person. Silence. And that's where it all comes down. It's not given, it's not concepts. I give you the key elements of what happens at that moment. When you're in the present instant, an opening is created, a form of transparency is created that you can't get by will or by mind. Silence. Has it been translated? Elisa. Yes. The problem, BIDI, is that we can't hear you well because there are cuts. There's not enough network where you are. Can't you move a little bit? And this openness allows you transparency. That's when you observe the changes. You don't decide, "Imrazumde, can you hear me?" Elisa. Not well, no. And now, can you hear me? Elisa. Yes, but through a cut. It doesn't come from here. It doesn't come from there. Tell me as soon as my voice is clear and not cut off. Brother. Now it's better. Elisa. That's better. Good. In summary, ordinary life, every moment, every circumstance, gives you the opportunity to live this moment. You can't miss it. You can't be deceived. That is the most important point. We have come closer with you over the years, sort of circling around the pot more and more, and juxtaposing you, putting you side by side, on one side chaos and on the other side love. By accepting love, and therefore what is, you disappear to yourselves without effort and without any request. In short, it is a question of attention, possibly of intention, which naturally leads you to live these changes. It is the moment when you wake up the same way you do every morning. This is not a simple analogy. It is exactly how you will live it if you have not yet lived it. To find silence, to experience a great silence, you must not listen, nor must you listen to the senses, Elisa, or the what. The five senses, nor the perceptions, just be there, motionless, and let be what is. If you're able to perceive that for one breath, it's over, you are sure to wake up. Everything else takes you to struggle, to suffering, not as punishment or karma of whatever, but as, at the same time, highlighting resistance and at the same time resilience, at the same time, in the same space. There are certainly explanations at the energetic level, at the vibratory level, at the scientific level, but once again, it is up to you to live it, to experience it and to see for yourself the effects on your life. Are you at peace? Are you smiling? Are you able to look at the theater scene for what it is, no matter how intense what is seen? You are forced at that moment to realize with absolute certainty that it is not real. You will be more and more interested in reliving it. There's no need for great circumstances, but any element of your day is more than enough. Another question. Elisa. Yes. Sister. Yes. Good evening, BIDI. Good evening. Sister. I would like to make a request to BIDI about something that I experience when I take a nap in the afternoon, when I fall asleep deeply because that is the only time I sleep. I dream that I want to wake up. So, I make an effort in my dream to open my eyes and wake up. It lasts a long time because I want to wake up and I can't wake up. At one point it puts me under stress and I wake up and I see that it's a dream. The question is, does it have to do with this awakening? That this is the awakening we're talking about. The dream is the real thing. The real is a dream. That is the ultimate equation. How can it exist? And that's what your dream tells you. Where is the dreamer? Where is the one who sleeps in the dream? And at the moment of the awakening of the dream, as you say after much effort, you are at the junction of extinction where there is nothing else but the infinite space and the infinite times of the dream. You are God, creator, creature, dreamer and dream destroyer, devil and sin in the same heart. It is only a dream and your dream send you back to that. Where is the true in what is seen and experienced, in dream and in awakening? The only way to realize the junction of being and non-being is the pure Brahman that you are. There are no more questions. There's only what you are, prior to the world, prior to the light, and yet prior to the same absence of light. What concepts and words can be used then? None. This is the grand silence, the metasamadhi, where even what is lived can no longer be expressed, manifested, born or died. You are there before the creation of the universe, and you will be there after the destruction of the universe. Then you will see that creation and destruction are only fantasies of consciousness and that you know all this intimately, from the elementary particle to the whole multiverse. It cannot be expressed, it cannot be said, it cannot find any form of escape, and besides who would want it? You are each one of the others. You are the whole of all times and all spaces, resolving where there is nothing, containing a whole, where the nothing and the whole interchangeable as in your dream. I answered. Sister. Okay, so still about sleep. This time it's at night. When I manage to fall asleep at night, sometimes while I'm sleeping, a voice calls my name, very loudly, and it wakes me up with a start. And I never know who that voice is, I don't know what it is. It's the same speech as before, sister. Okay. For the first answer. It's the same thing. Are you the one who calls yourself in your own sleep? In more psychological terms, you would say that your unconscious and your subconscious are talking to your conscious under the benevolent gaze of the superconscious, and in the great burst of laughter of the pure Brahman who laughs at it all. And everything is interchangeable, without distance and without time. It is something instantaneous. It's what you experience during your naps, it's what you experience during your nights. Sister. Thank you, BIDI. Thank you very much. Elisa. A brother. Brother. Yes. Hello BIDI. Good evening. Sister. So, this is a testimony that goes in the same direction as what you just said, where yesterday Rem had spoken of particular moments in the day. And in fact, I live them almost every day. So I'm like a vegetable, I can't do anything, I can't even think. Besides, it suits me very well. But since I work in research, I still need a bit of my brain from time to time. So I let it go, it suits me very well. But, for now, I'm happy to have a nice boss. That's it, that's it. Well, thank you. Silence. Elisa. So, there's nothing to say there. Shall we move on to the next question? BIDI. And yes, of course. Elisa. Well, we will go through a sister who has something to say again. Question, or testimony, or sharing, it doesn't matter. Sister. Good evening BIDI. Good evening. Sister. The first thing is a testimony in the form of thanks. And the second is a question. 2 weeks ago, I practiced for the first time the absorption of the essences with you BIDI, trying to follow what you had recommended, focusing on attention and not on physical or emotional reactions or perceptions. The experience was very, very strong, for several hours, and the next morning, a great calm. And when I got into my car, suddenly and spontaneously, there was an immense burst of laughter, a crazy laugh that didn't leave me for several minutes. Sister. I had never experienced that before. It was a laugh that came from the heart area and had no particular reason. The next day, waking up in a very bad mood, again in my car, I called you several times, shouting I love you BIDI, and a few meters later, I found myself instantly as if projected into a totally neutral form of observation, a form of indifference where everything that was perceived and seen was like tasting the evidence that it wasn't real. For this, I thank you. Welcome to AGAPE. Sister. Thank you. Laughing out loud. Sister. My question now BIDI. I find myself facing the same pitfall, for several years now, which is fear of fear. I have no other words to say it. How can I overcome it? Fear of fear is just something that corresponds to a habit of the character. I remind you that this illusory character accompanies you until your last breath in this dream, and even magnified, transcended by AGAPE, because of the memories that are still active and unconscious, but that you should never delve into. In the same way that you have absorbed, I invite you to absorb what I will name the archetypal fear in the same way in your heart, and the fire of the heart or the laughter of the heart will absorb all of this. Remember that you each have a different dynamic that you have written yourself. Some of you are going through it, little by little, until the memory elements that are simply the memory of taking shape, not karma, the habit of being in a shape, and on this earth, the fear of losing the shape. Because pure consciousness Sattva Chit Ananda is something that is this great peace, this great burst of laughter, that will consume at your own pace, that you cannot change at the level of the stages, but you can change in the duration of the stages, and that depends only on the quality of the welcome that you make as a character, on the great burst of laughter that has been experienced and that you have described in your testimony. It is not a question of reviving the past of this experience, but of letting it settle into a habitual mechanism, not of reaction, but really of acceptance thereto of what is, without thinking, but thereto with the principle that what is lived is lived. And when you understand that this does not call for any interpretation by the beauty of silence which is there at the same time, you will settle down quite naturally and without any effort in this natural state. The steps are written before you experience them, but as we have said countless times, you cannot change the reel of film, but you can press fast forward. That's how fear evacuates itself, offering not only no resistance to the film's progress, but also no understanding. Understanding comes by itself as you accept the film. In short, the character again becomes the silent, immobile observer or witness, and that's what presses a fast forward button. It's extremely simple, it will happen in the next moment you experience it. Don't be afraid of it, don't domesticate it, don't reject it either. It's part of your humanity, but let it be transmuted by Thanksgiving itself, as you say. All this happens naturally. If you think you have to make an effort, stop everything. Keep your efforts to your daily life, and it will become effortless too, by the same mechanism. Any one of us is capable of doing this and seeing it. These are all your priori, all the memories you unconsciously clung to, and I mentioned the memory of form first. Consciousness is dependent, it is linked to the notion of identity, of limit and form, what I called many years ago now the sack of meat. But it is in the bag of meat that there's the temple, or the theater. That's where you'll leave in a great burst of cosmic laughter, and you'll never be able to fall asleep again completely. But these stages of purification, which in some books could be called washing one's dresses or auras, bring you back to the innocence and simplicity of childhood. It was the teaching and understanding brought to you by the stars, the 12 spiritual potentials, or the 12 stars you have named from Mary, that brought you back to unity, to the heart of the heart, and ultimately, to what you are. What you described in your testimony, which happened one morning and lasted for some time, is a daily state of the pure Brahman that you are, too. Another question. Thank you. Sister. Thank you, BIDI. Brother. Good evening, BIDI. Good evening. Brother. Then I have a testimony that is in line with what our sister said just before. I also have a question and then a request. Brother. I begin with the testimony. In 2014, I experienced successively the disappearance of that theater, the white veil, and then the disappearance of the stage with the Indus and the great burst of laughter. Each time, it took place at a moment when I physically opened a door. But since that time, I have never experienced anything like that again. This brings me to my question. Why, in spite of having experienced this, I still feel very insecure in this world. I don't find my place, and I am much more afraid of this world than of who I am deeply. That's my question. Thank you for the testimony. The answer is almost identical to what I was able to give for the previous 2-3 questions and testimonies. There's the memory of who you are that was lived as an experience, and that today is no longer apparent. But as you all say, this kind of experience cannot be forgotten, because you knew at the time you lived it that only that was true. But life's habits may have overshadowed your lucidity and attention to the present moment, while you were busy reliving the memory of that blessed moment over and over again. This is the danger of memory, and yet here it is something that has nothing to do with anything karmic or unpleasant, but nevertheless as this truth has moved away from you in appearance, you have made it a memory and a nostalgia that naturally and independently of you creates a feeling of distance, because a memory, however intense it may be, will never be the present, but disturbs your present. And when it is something pleasant, like the experience of truth, you pass into the character quite involuntarily and unconsciously, trying to revive, and that alone creates a distance and naturally distracts the consciousness of the present instant as well, quite simply. There's no other explanation to look for, there's no other causality. Be even more lucid of the instant, no longer think about this experience, it is always present, but it is you who are no longer present, clinging unintentionally to the said experience. Grasp this, there's both a great mystery and extreme simplicity. Is this clear to you? Brother. Yes, it is much clearer. Thank you, BIDI. I just have one request, and also, for those who have testified before, it is the same thing. Brother. Here you are, BIDI. In fact, I want you to come with me. So I invite you to visit me. That's it, that's my request. So, I would like to remind you here that for some time now, I have been saying that I am available for each of you at 23 o'clock, 11 o'clock at your home. You don't have to ask me anything, you just have to welcome me and I will be there. Many of you had already checked this. So, it's good to remember that. Brother. Thank you very much, BIDI. I was saying when I was incarnate, that when you call the Guru, Master, in you, it is not me who appears, because you're the Guru. I am only there as an image, among so many others, of the lived, conscious reality that corresponds to the time we are living, you and us. Thank you. Another question. Brother. Thank you. Elisa. Truth is one. But it is said that everyone has his own truth. Would it be the same truth, seen from different places, because we are all one? If everyone has his own truth, would it be the true truth, seen from different places, if we are all one? That's what it means. So dear sister, if you want to read up on this, I will gladly refer you to the interventions of the Archangel Nael, about the relative and absolute truth. In the same way that there is your life, and there is life, in the same way there is your individual truth, which is real for each character. The truth I am talking about is the absolute truth, in the sense of Nael, which happens to be the same for everyone. The mystery of love, the mystery of dream, the mystery of life, the mystery of creation disappears before the truth. This truth is common. Love tells and proves just that we are in truth with each other, absolutely and totally. This is the process of dream entanglement. The dream is common to all creation, but the point of view is profoundly different depending on where you look. From this point on, as long as it seems to you that there is an individual truth, there can be no absolute truth, at least not one that you can live by. Because you are still subject to the disease and the swindle called consciousness, and only the one who discovers the absolute, or what I have also named Brahman, if you prefer a consciousness, which is prior to consciousness, not to be confused with unconsciousness, you are subject to individual truths, which from the point of view of the absolute truth, is a farce. It does not exist. Each point of view, each body, each consciousness has its own individual truth. It can only be relative. In the absolute truth, there is really the experience that we are in each other, even if there is no one. And this is a great burst of laughter. That is the difference. Elisa, shall we move on to another question? Yes. Elisa, then I read it in French and then I translate it. Good evening, BIDI. I'm tired of waiting for a click. I see this waiting, it's there, and I'm tired of it. I know that it is an illusion, that it is not real. It's obvious, but I'm not living the truth completely. Otherwise, this question would not arise. What would you have to tell me, or advise me? Thank you in advance. Who is waiting for what? The ephemeral awaits the ephemeral. The story is waiting for the end of the story. There is still an identification in you with the story that is unfolding. I have already strongly advised, in October of the previous year, that if you're not free and you continue to wait while following the story, you will suffer from a feeling of never ending, and much worse, waiting for the ephemeral. I had indicated that if you were still, without being free, in the flow of the story, an expectation would grow, and that, above all, there would be illnesses that would appear in this body, in this physical bag. Only he who knows that this is a theater, because he has lived it, only he who is in the great silence, can follow history without any expectations, content to live his human life, wherever he is, whatever that life may be. Whoever is not totally free, whoever is not quiet, whoever is not smiling, has every interest in moving away from the theater stage very quickly. You have enough to do with your personal and intimate theater, with your personal history, rather than looking for the date of an event, however major it may be. It is a waste of time for those who are not free. You have to turn to silence and acceptance, if you're not able to watch this bad movie in a neutral and joyful way. Otherwise, I have said it and I repeat it today, at first you'll vomit yourself, and if you persist, you will develop organic diseases on the doors. So, without giving names, just the areas of your body that may be affected by this waiting for an event, rather than living the event, right there, right now, the places that will crystallize, if I may say so, the lungs and the breasts, the liver and the spleen, the groin folds and the feet, the lower back and the cervical area. This is not conceptual, it is not an idea, it is the result of your behavior according to whether you're AGAPE or not, if I can say so, in front of the history of the world and in front of your personal history. Waiting creates distance. Waiting creates suffering, because as you're waiting, you are not available for life. You are not available in the present moment. You are elsewhere. But that doesn't matter to the one who is awake. He can play, he can learn, he can create art, he can garden. His life flows and life flows. For the one who is waiting, there's resistance. It is the opposite. There's no joy in waiting. There's no truth in hope or expectation. For the one who is waiting, there's resistance. It is the opposite. There's no joy in waiting. There's no truth in hope or hope. It is cheating. Only what is now is true. You cannot be waiting for an event or as in previous testimonies in the memory of a past moment, and at the same time be available. This is not possible. Life reminds you of this now on this earth, in all possible ways. The uncertainty, the unknown about your body, about your life, about your finances, about your family, about the future, is a unique opportunity to be true and real. You have nothing to run away from. You have nothing to wait for. Just be there, no questions, no expectations and no memories. It doesn't mean refusing problems. It doesn't mean you don't face problems in the ephemeral. But that at that moment, your availability to the moment and to life will literally come to sweep away blow, illness, suffering, question. This cannot fail in these moments of the earth, in this ephemeral of the earth. Nothing is left to chance. Everything has been written, as AGAPE says, and I would say that everything has already been lived. This is the absolute truth of those who touch this heart of the heart and live it. There are countless testimonies from everywhere, even if the brothers and sisters don't call it AGAPE or Time Zero or Brahman, it doesn't matter. But if there is one thing that is certain, it is that it is the same event that is lived by each one individually, with different translations of experiences and different words, and yet the same experience. As they say, AGAPEans recognize each other without needing to question or question themselves. They recognize each other through their freedom and their smile and through the unshakable certainty of what they have found, whatever the uncertainties of their own bodies, their own lives, or their own history. Is this a little understood? Alisa, the person who asked that question, brother. Yes, BIDI, thank you. It is understood. Alisa, thank you. I have another question. BIDI, can you talk about the word life? What does this mystery that animates everything, even if it, can I? Alisa, yes, can you talk about the word life, life? What does it mean, this mystery of life that animates everything even if it is inside the dream? I'm sorry, I didn't understand the words. The story of what? Alisa, can you talk about the word life, VIE, life, the word life? What does the word life mean? I didn't understand the word exactly. Alisa, life, life, what does it mean? Alisa, life, life, what does the word life mean? The word life, what does life mean? Alisa, yes, what does the word life mean? The word life. I heard it but I still don't understand it. What does the word yes mean? Alisa, no, the word life. Life, life, both are who you are. But why do you want to define life? Life is what happens. It's like asking a fish, asking it what water is. Life is what you feel. Your life is your story. Then, after, of course, we can talk about eternal life, the life of the universes. Life is a dream. But the difference between what we call your life and life, your life is your story, life is the intelligence of light at work. This is the moment when you understand and live that all this life is a dream allowed by the intelligence of the light and the intelligence of that creative mothers, the genetic mothers if you like. Life is the evidence of this intelligence of light in action. The intelligence of light, which I believe was named by the commander the Christic Matrix, is that moment, the moment to remember what you were before all memory and remembrance. It is the moment when you remember that you're indeed the way, the truth and the life, that you're the Alpha and the Omega and that all this is just a movie. But this cinema allows awakening. Hello. Alisa. Hello, yes, that's good. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Alisa. Dear BIDI, good evening. I'm asking you, what do the songs always in the left ear and the ultrasounds always in the right ear represent, that I hear daily several times during the day and even more intensely at night? For about 2 months now, I have been welcoming them. I love them. Thank you. I thank you. Then, allow me to make a bibliographical answer, because these different sounds were explained for many years, especially at the time of the Yoga of Unity and Truth of Master Ram and a friend, and the Yoga of Silence. The whistling of the left ear's nada, the song of the soul. There are 7 different sounds, each corresponding to a characteristic. Parallel to this chanting or whistling, there are indeed fluctuations of these ultra-frequencies, which actually fluctuate according to the moments, which are reinforced at certain moon phases, but especially according to the approach of Nibbur. I therefore invite you to look at what has been perfectly documented concerning the Song of the Soul and the Song of the Spirit, as well as the Call of Mary, being called by your first name at night, and the relationship between Nibbur and your heart and sound. It also brings you back to a particular form of yoga that we call Kriya Yoga, and Nada Yoga, the Yoga of Sound, which is somehow related to the Yoga of Silence. Allow me not to go into detail, given the short time we have. Remember that this is already a sign and proof that you're in contact with the truth. Thank you. Thank you. Next question. Alisa. So, one day earlier I felt a very deep sadness, and I don't know where it comes from. It is so strong that even I can hardly breathe. And then starts another day, this state is no more and I am in peace and silence. Why does it happen? At the level of silence there are a certain number of perceived mechanisms, energetic, vibratory but also organic mechanisms. One of these phases, sometimes painful, is called the perforation of the heart, the tearing of the heart, the pericardium, the tearing of the pericardium, formerly named in Ultra's dimensions, the cure is the gate connected to the heart chakra, to the 8th and 9th body. For some, this tear of the pericardium can trigger discomfort or awkward sensations, even pain above the right and left breasts, on the gates you named Allah and Unity. Parallel to this, the Metatronic impulse, the impulse of Christ and Michael the Archangel, it is the sort of Michael that pierces your heart from back to front or from front to back. There are indeed sometimes painful phenomena linked to this particular vibratory form of transubstantiation, to pass from the physical body to the body of eternity. Here again, avoid getting lost in details. All this has been perfectly explained and listed for many years by the speakers of Ultra's dimensions. I repeat, however, today, that all this knowledge is superfluous and that the more natural and simpler you are, the more you accept the instant and what is, and the more all this alchemy, this transubstantiation will take place naturally and without pain. Don't waste time interpreting it, but keep time to live it and to go through it without stopping it. I think we will take perhaps one last question now. Alisa. Yes, because we have 5 minutes. Or the last 2, if they go fast. Alisa. Good evening BIDI. I have the chance to live the Absolute. I witnessed it in July. My path has been from nothing to the whole. This is a testimony from a brother. As I crossed without holding anything back, sharing this resonance, I was asked a question that made me laugh. What is there before the Absolute? Apart from nothing and everything at the same time, I have silence to answer. Why BIDI, what is your opinion on this question? Thanks, BIDI, for your contribution to humanity. Alisa. May I translate it? Alisa. Before the Absolute. Alisa, smiling. Well, what's that wanted? I'll answer you in Brother K's way, it will avoid annoying me. Brother K used to say, whoever asks me what is on the other side of the river, just cross it himself. Nothing I could say could come close to this experience. There can be neither before nor after in the Absolute. There can be no notion of before, after, inside, outside, up, down, left, right. Nothing can be spotted. Everything is fixed and at the same time, everything is in motion. I can only invite you to go and experience it, or in other words, to go and be seen there to understand. The approach of wanting to understand the absolute is like the approach of wanting to understand times zero, when it is to live it that makes you understand it. I've already taken an example that I'll take up again. When you walk, every day you will walk. How important is it to know which muscle or nerve or bone is in action? If you didn't have feet and you understood feet, would it make a difference if you didn't have feet? Not at all. It is the same for truth, for the real, for the present moment, for zero time and for the absolute. The nature of the human brain is such, that it seems to us all at first, that it is necessary to understand something in order to appropriate it or to live it. I'm telling you, this is bullshit. I've repeated it hundreds of times over the last 2 years. Abba and Homa have repeated it too. Living is understanding. There's no other solution. Settle down in the instant, Elisa. It is -5 BIDI. Claim nothing. Do not forget that AGAPE, absolute love, per Brahman is a restitution and not an acquisition. To be full, you must empty yourself, in order to understand while living it, that there's neither full nor empty. What I am telling you necessarily escapes your logic, your intellect. But the heart understands it instantly. That's why, in the same way when I was incarnated, I affirmed that my words could not fail, even if at that time very few understood it. Today if I say to you, and these will be my final words, that AGAPE cannot fail. If you grasp the essence of this word, then you're free. Now it is time for BIDI to leave you. I thank you for your sharing, for our exchanges, and I tell you what. Brother, AGAPE. AGAPE. See you soon. All the speakers are scrolling on the video. See you soon, AGAPE. Thank you BIDI, thank you Jean-Luc, thank you Elisa, Jean-Luc. All those who want to now, as I said, it's 9 o'clock, you can stay on the line or hang up, it won't change anything. You take a moment of immobility, of silence, with your eyes closed, you don't expect anything, you don't ask for anything, you are available, and that's it. Everything will take care of itself, okay? Thank you Jean-Luc, I love you Jean-Luc, thank you, kisses, 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 thank you Elisa, AGAPE, 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 gracias, 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 thank you all and AGAPE now for a few minutes, and I leave the screen. AGAPE, AGAPE. Through Jean-Luc Ayoun. Less transformations. Transcription. Transcriptions.father Facebook. Translation into English, LMF. BIDI, AGAPE online, January 31, 2021, Apotheosis, apotheose.live.